Hello, welcome to the second session of the LinkedIn Live of our three-part series for upstream oil and gas operators. My name is Jeff McKee. I run Jeff McKee Consulting, which is an AI strategy company. And with me, I have Vijay Kasireddy, who's the co-founder of MangoBytes AI. So today's session is really going to be showing you the MangoBytes AI solution and some of the agents that we have. But just as a recap of session number one, we did an overview of the MangoBytes AI solution, and it's in production with over 1,500 wells across Texas, New Mexico, and Louisiana. And what we've seen from this solution being in production is a 3 to 10% production uplift. We've seen a 5 to 15% profit lift on the targeted investments, greater than a 90% reduction in the compliance checks. And you'll see some of the compliance today with that agent. And then the decision cycle times for management have been reduced from days to minutes by implementing these solutions for upstream oil and gas. Also, in the first session, we covered my Pivot AI overall framework, how to do pilots quickly, how to prioritize those high value workloads. So today it's all about the solution and the agents. So when we talk about the AI agents for MangoBytes Pixie AI, so we've got field and production analysts. So there are tools in here that can help monitor the wells in the fields 24/7. It flags underperformer and it suggests fixes. So the system will do that. Then we also have a profit and revenue analyzer. So it reveals which wells and fields are creating the value or destroying the value. So you can prioritize to determine where you want to invest or divest. Then there's also the regulatory and compliance assistant. So it tracks obligations, upcoming deadlines, and the at-risk wells before it goes out of compliance. There's also forecasting investment guide. It runs scenarios and ranks projects by the net present value under different price scenarios. So $60 a barrel, $50 a barrel, $80 a barrel, etc. There's also acquisition and market insights, a researcher. So it pulls data from the filings, the market sources, and internal systems. And lastly, there's a data visualization, a download assistant, produces the charts, exports, and summaries for executives and teams. So Vijay is going to walk you through a few of these scenarios with the live software to give you an idea of what an AI agent looks like and what it can do in this particular case for upstream oil and gas operators. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vijay and have him go through that solution with you. So Vijay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jeff. So in our last session, we talked about a high-level overview of MangoBytes AI and our super agent Pixie, along with the specialized agents specifically built for energy domain. So as Jeff mentioned, in this session, we look at live agents in action. And also in the next session, we'll walk through the architecture and how we are constantly innovating to improve the productivity and performance of the agents. Before we go into the action, I want to touch on two questions that we get asked a lot. First, what is an AI agent? We define AI agents as systems that combine foundational models such as LLMs with optional tools, memory, context, and reasoning capabilities to autonomously execute multi-step tasks. So what this means is that from an end user perspective, we can not only ask anything, but also assign tasks such as filling and filing forms or creating a workover plan along with AFEs and payout economics and all of that interesting stuff, which we're going to see in action in a moment. The second question that we also get asked is, how do we think about AI agents? So we all know that the nature of work varies from role to role, process to process, and company to company. So what we did is we built agents by roles, by processes, and by verticals, along with the ability to configure the agents and stitch them to suit your own processes and workflows. So with that, let's actually look at a view of all these agents by different roles and processes. So this is the MangoBytes AI website that you can go and check out. So if you go in here, we have AI agents by role. So here, for example, the compliance and regulatory teams. So the compliance and regulatory teams, so we built a bunch of agents that can autonomously execute specific tasks and actions, such as filling forms and filing forms, as well as getting notified on what sort of forms that are due this week, this month, or this quarter, and to follow up with them. So the idea behind this is that never to fill and file another form again. And the idea to actually move from very stressful work to doing meaningful work and let the agents to do all the busy work, all the repetitive and manual work. So similarly, if you look at other roles such as the production and operations teams, what we noticed is that in our own teams, people are spending a lot of time, not by choice, but by necessity, to be able to go and execute and get all the workover paperwork done, and to be able to get all this information across multiple systems. So we built agents not only that can create workover plans, but also for engineers to be able to benchmark performance against similar, offset wells, but also many other tasks that are in between, such as extracting well schematic details or looking at multiple wells and multiple workovers, and to be able to ask any questions on the previous workovers that were done. Similarly, the finance and accounting agents, the idea to build reports and do forecasts and do sensitivity analysis. Jeff was talking about what happens at WTI at $80 or WTI at 50. What is my break-even price? And all of those good questions. The ability to actually create those reports and forecasts in minutes, versus days, and again going to a number of different systems and putting together all those reports, either for you or for your teams. And similarly, the management agents, the idea that you're not focused on just today and understanding the what, but also you want to be able to look at what happens in a year from now and understand why certain things are happening the way they're doing, and to focus more on the decisioning process and the rigor on it, as well as preparing for better risk management. Similarly, the landman agents, focusing on deals and not necessarily lookups and all of this data, and also looking at the property tax payments, the ad valorem taxes, and not necessarily getting surprised when the tax payments that go up, and sometimes they do go up in a big way, understanding which of those are going up by an unreasonable amount, not only relative to the past, but also looking at your neighboring fields, and then if needed, filing protest forms or and identifying if you're missing any exemption filings, and the ability to get all of those things right, with the help of the agents. We've also recently released hedging and trading agents, which is a very important sort of work, especially anyone managing these assets, given the volatility in the commodity prices, to be able to look at what ifs, to be able to look at the futures, and also to be able to reconcile the different statements and compare the actual versus what was being planned, detect mismatches and anomalies. So all kinds of things, where there is a tremendous amount of paperwork and manual work that is involved, and how do you simplify it, and that will allow the management to look at how do I maximize the profit, how do I minimize the risk. So those are the top questions that people have, and to be able to spend a disproportionate amount of time on those activities. So that's how we think about the agents by the roles, and then we also have by processes, the main processes from production and operations to all the way to well planning, the sub processes under each one of them. And then also one of the things that what we have done is the quantitative benefits of each one of these agents. So as you can see here, based on the real data that we have, without MangoBytes AI and with MangoBytes AI, so that basically gives us the comfort to be able to quantify and to be able to understand before investing huge amounts of time and effort, and to be able to prioritize which agents to actually start using. So with that, let's actually jump into the action. When we go into MangoBytes.ai, this is how the interface looks like. For all of us who use Chat GPTs and Gemini and Grok and all of these different tools. So this should be a very familiar interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick overview of the different components, the different tools of the MangoBytes suite. So we have Pixie, which is the super agent, which we can ask any questions. And also we can interact with the other agents through Pixie directly from here. Then there is the AI agents. So when we click on it, we go in here, so which is the AI agent library, and we'll actually play with some of these agents in a bit. We have about 50 different agents in various stages. Many of them are certified, generally available, and are in production, and people are using and getting value out of it. And then we have some of them in the preview and some of them in development. So we'll come back to this in a bit. And then we have the AI analytics. We'll also spend a few minutes on that, and then the AI studio. But for now, we'll primarily focus on Pixie and the AI agents. And if you look at Pixie, I have pre-populated, just to save some time, and some of the questions that I was asking. So here, my favorite question is, hey, I want to look at a chart that plots both the production and the profit for the last 12 months. But also, I want to map it and look at the same chart along with the forecast for the next 12 months in the same chart, so I can sort of visualize, all the way from the past to the future, and to be able to make any adjustments. So when I ask this question, as you would see in the processing steps, one of the things that I want to highlight is Pixie automatically puts together a plan of action. So it interprets that question, and it's put together a plan of action. And so when we look at it, and when we look at the answer, we know why the answer the way it is, because we understand the assumptions and how Pixie has interpreted it. So if you don't like the answer, or if you want a different answer, we can go to the plan of action and change some of the assumptions and change the question to specifically focus on what we want it to do. So when we ask the question, so it's giving the timelines, as well as it's giving some narrative of highlights the answer to that particular question, and then the data behind it, and then the chart, some insights as to what happened to the numbers over a period of time. And as we can see here, so this is the chart. So before, we're in December, the last 12 months looking backward, and then like the forecast looking forward. So it's very helpful to look at everything in one place. And of course, some of us may like the bar chart, so we can toggle between the two. If you want to look at the raw data, we can look at the raw data, and we can look at other things such as downloading it, making it bigger, saving it. And then there is a bunch of related questions that allows us to dig deeper and double click on some of these pointers that we're seeing here. So one of the things that I also want to do is, if we look at this forecast, it's based on a certain assumption. It's based on the CME futures. What if I want to do a sensitivity analysis? What if I want to look at what happens to the forecast if WTI is $80 or if it's at $50? And I want to be able to look at all of those scenarios in the same chart. So I asked that question, add to the above chart. So I don't want to see a separate chart, but it's in the same chart, the forecasts of profits at $80 and $70 WTI. So if you look at it, so basically what it gave some highlights, some insights, and then there we go. So we have this chart of all the different scenarios and like how the numbers change based on this sensitivity analysis. So now imagine if I have to get this type of chart, the amount of time that it would take and the amount of effort that it would take for somebody to actually create the chart, for me. So right now I'm able to create this, just like that within a minute or so. And then the other interesting thing is there are related questions that I just mentioned. So these are also very interesting. And of course, I can continue to ask any other questions and like continue to go and like dig into the root causes or like expand on this topic and so on and so forth. I can understand like why there is a dip in here, or why it is forecasted to dip in here, or why is this relatively flat at $80 WTI versus there is a small curve, at the $60 WTI, right? So those are the questions that I can dig deeper and understand. So let me now move to the next one, which is the form filling and filing, which is what we look into it. But before I do that, this is also an interesting, we can ask Pixie about the regulatory and compliance status of one of the fields that I'm managing. So I just simply said, hey, give me the status of this field. So it gave me a summary, the total number of wells in this particular field, and then the status breakdown, the last updated. So basically, it's saying that I've got some P5 renewal requirements. All the wells have upcoming, as well as basically it's saying, I'm compliant with respect to every other form. There are no other tests that are currently due for any well. And then there is a tabular data which I can download or share it with a colleague of mine or somebody, things like that, right? One of the things that I can also do is that expanding beyond this particular field, I can also look at, are there any wells across all the fields that I have access to that have compliance deadlines in the next 90 days? So I get this nice table by different fields, by different forms, and like, what is due. So this is also helpful for me, not only to look at an overall view across all the assets, but a particular asset or maybe a particular well within a given field. So all of this is very useful. And one of the interesting things that I can also do is now I want to look at, what happens to my neighbors, right? Tell me the regulatory and compliance status of nearby fields. So I put in, if you notice here, 10 miles. I can basically put whatever. I mean, that's a parameter that I can choose, 5 miles or 20 miles or whatever the number that makes sense. And so as we can see in here, so it picked some of the fields, nearby fields within 10 miles, and it's giving me compliance status for those fields. So this may be useful for me, especially if I want to coordinate with them, and if I want to look at like benchmarking, as well as how do I constantly make my fields better. So now going back here, let's look at one of the agents. One of the agents for the demo purposes. And by the way, these are all agents in production. So I'll pick this H10 form filling agent, and I'm going to click on this. So when we click on any agent, the way we have industrialized it is for every agent there is a description of what this agent does that assists in filling this particular agent, the Texas Railroad Commission H10 form. And there is also a bunch of questions that can be extremely helpful, especially as I'm getting started, and as well as this agent gets fine-tuned. So questions like, how can you assist me and why is it better? What is it that you can do and what is it that you can't do? I want to understand the limitations. And what are the benefits? What is the process that this particular agent uses, and how do I get started? So I'm going to click on how do I get started. And as it is coming up with it, just a quick background here. I'm going to go in here. So this is a document that explains the form H10, all the different fields that go into it, and the different parameters of actually filling this form. So this is a 68-page document for this form. And this is how the form looks like. There is about 100 different fields in here. And what is interesting about this form is that obviously this form is very different, and it's got interesting ways of, the rows and within rows and columns within columns and different sorts of tables. There is a free flowing text and so on and so forth. And then the information that needs to go into this form comes from a variety of systems. So, for example, the top 11 fields or so that come from the accounting system. The other the central the table in the middle that comes from a completely different system, or sometimes it's in the emails, or probably sitting in a SharePoint. Where a pumper or a technician is actually going in and taking all of these readings of pressure over multiple time points or intervals. So now if you go in here, so it's simply asking me for this identifier. So I'm just going to put this identifier. And as we were looking at it, so what it did is it basically it's asking for the additional field. So what I'm going to do is that particular form, which is in my SharePoint. So I'm going to actually upload that form. And so what it did here is it automatically pulled the information from the accounting system for the different fields. So I say all of this information is correct. And then for the remaining sections, it pulled all of that information from the file that I just uploaded or pointed to in the SharePoint. And I'm going to say yes. All of this information is correct. And then once I provide all of this information, it basically populates this form. So now once I have this form, right, I can manually edit it, and I can get this form ready as I see fit. So essentially what we have done here is what it takes hours to actually fill this form, having multiple screens, having multiple printouts, and the idea to copy and paste and take the information and manually enter the data, we were able to get all of this compressed in just minutes. So with that, let me actually see if I can get another agent, and I'll make that quick. So I'm going to pick another agent, well workover agent. So again, it's the same thing. What is this? What this agent does, and some of the basic questions for me to get up to speed. How can you assist me, and why is it better? What are the benefits, and how do I get started? So I click on how do I get started. So what I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to pick a well schematic. So this is how the well schematic looks like. This is in this particular example. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to upload the schematic in here. So what is interesting about this is it not only interprets the schematic, but also the structured data, but also the tables of the production. And it basically analyzes all of that information, and it gives me a 5-point decision summary of this workover, as well as a feasibility study. And one of the things that it needs is the production data to be able to get the economics. So I'm going to, since the agent already has access to all of this information, so I'm going to say, go ahead and fetch that information. So it pulls this production trend, and it comes up with the economics. So as we can see here, it has not only calculated everything, but it also gave me a bunch of scenarios for different budgets and the payout times, as well as the IRR estimate and the PV10. So all of this information can be extremely useful then for me to make a decision for me and my management team. and it dramatically simplifies for an engineer to be able to take all of this data and to create. So now I can ask questions versus actually spending a lot of manual time. So with that, let me actually jump in, and then I hand over to Jeff on this. So coming back to our website, so there's a lot of resources in here, from webinars, case studies, and demo vignettes, blogs, and customer testimonials. So one of the things that I want to point out is here toward the bottom page of the website. So there is a follow us in here. So you can click on LinkedIn and follow us, or X. That will basically, you can keep up to date on all the changes and the announcements that we are making as we go forward. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jeff.
Great. Thanks, BJ. And I'm just going to add back the slides. And so what Vijay went over was the compliance risk and looking at the form filling agent. And there was lots of agents there, but this was like the problem: multiple jurisdictions, the shifting rules, the high risk of missed deadlines and penalties. And you saw kind of the forecast of what was coming due for all those oil wells that needed some action to remain in compliance. Then ask the compliant assistant, so show the wells that have deadlines within the 90 days, which ones are out of compliance and risk. Then the outcome: prioritize actions, fewer surprises, 50 to 80% reduction in penalties and late fees. And then also, by having a forecast and getting in front of it and having these AI agents and tools like this, you're not pulling highly skilled people off their task to make a deadline. So pulling the reservoir, engineer off to meet a specific deadline to help the compliance agent out in the company, they're able to stay on their task, and the compliance agent's able to keep up with all of this, having these agents. So that was one of the scenarios that you saw. And then the underperforming wells, so the well workover agent, and you saw how easily that was able to pull up the agent, to pull in the data, to go fetch that data. So the problem is the field under budget, the type of curve for several months, unclear where to focus among dozens of wells. So you could actually prioritize and look at the different wells and prioritize which ones are the workover and what your budget is for that. So you could ask Pixie, show the monthly production and highlight the underperforming wells for this particular field. Then they'll rank the wells by lost production and profit impact. And then, it provides suggestions on what the likely causes are and what actions could be taken. And then management's got to decide, which actions to actually take. Then the outcome: engineering and ops compress 1 to 2 days of analysis into minutes and identify, with a 3% to 10% uplift of the opportunities. So those were a couple of the agents that you saw Vijay demo. So that's the end of the second session. Now we do have the third session coming up next week, December 18th. 3 p.m. Central Time. Now, as Vijay mentioned earlier in this one, the topic's going to be, how is the MangoBytes AI solution architected? How is it developed? And how does it sit on the Microsoft stack? So we're basically going to do a technical deep dive in just over a week on the third session. Now, to continue this conversation for your company, we can have an ROI opportunity review. So identify 2 to 3 use cases, high ROI areas in your company for the upstream portfolio. Also, we can have a session on the MangoBytes AI architecture and security session, which is a separate session. So once you see the one next week, you can determine if you want a deeper dive on how to use this as a software as a service in the cloud, or how to use this MangoBytes AI solution on premise, inside your 4 walls. So the way that you can contact me is through my email, jeff@jeffmckeyconsulting.com. Through LinkedIn, Jeff McKee, or I've got a Calendly that you can book. And then, you saw some of the MangoBytes information about how to contact and research the MangoBytes information on their website, mangobytes.ai. So with that, thank you, Vijay, for going through a couple of these demos and how the agents are set up, also by the role, how it's defined by the role. And there's over 50 that are in the tool today, some of which are in full production, some of it are testing, some of it we're still gathering requirements. So with that, Vijay, any other last words before we sign off today?
All good, Jeff. Yeah. So this is a great, fantastic next step summary.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Vijay.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Yeah.